This week we're going to talk about how we can use Excel to make visual displays of data. In practice, when we collect data, there's going to be far too many pieces of data for us to actually go through and count each of the individual data values and place them in a frequency distribution. We're going to use some type of software, such as Excel, in order to do that work for us. And so today we're going to look at how we can use Excel to make a frequency distribution, make a histogram. We can do both of those at the same time. A bar graph, and a line graph. Let's go do that now. For this example, we're going to say you work for a credit card counseling center that serves students. And what your company has done is kept track of 100 students who came in the door and what their credit card balances were. These are listed here. Student 5 has a credit card balance of $3,229.05. We're going to make a frequency distribution and histogram for this data. If you scroll down, you see that it stops at student 100. So there are 100 students. So we might record that for our record. 100 students. We need to know if there's 100 students, how many bins will we use, how many classes will we use for those 100 students? And now we talked about doing somewhere between 5 and 20 is a good amount. And we also talked about this formula 2 raised to some power to kind of help guide us. Let's use that formula. We're going to hit equals, and that's going to turn Excel into a calculator. 2, and we're going to raise it to an exponent. And we do that with Shift 6, gives us the little caret. We treat that like an exponent. And you might guess, let's see what 2 to the 5th power is. That's 32. Probably too small. Let's go bigger. Equals 2 to the 6th power. 64. Let's go bigger. Equals 2 to the 7th power. 128. Notice the 128 is bigger than the number of students, so that's too big. So below that was 2 to the 6th power. We're probably going to go for 6 bins to get a good distribution of our data. I don't need these anymore, so let's delete those. Now that we know how many bins we want, we need to know what the maximum and minimum values of our data set, so we can calculate the bin width. So we're going to find the small value and the big value. To find the smallest value, we can actually have Excel go through and find the minimum value. And the way we do that is we hit equals and type MIN to get the smallest number, open a parentheses, and then go through and select all of these credit card balances. All 100 of them. Close the parentheses and hit enter. Now it took me off the screen there, but the smallest one is $419.58. To find the biggest value, we hit equals again, and to get the biggest, we type max and do much the same thing. Select all the data values and hit enter. You might need to scroll to see the biggest value is $6,316. Now we're ready to find the bin width. The bin width is the big minus the small divided by the number of bins. Now we want to do the subtraction first. So after we hit equals, we're going to open a parentheses to tell the calculator, Excel, to do the biggest minus the smallest first. Notice I select the cell so that if I have to change something later, it's still going to work. Close the parentheses, and let's divide by the number of bins, which is 6. Hit enter, and the width is going to be about $982.78. Let me see, is that exact? No, that's rounded. So we're going to make sure we round up, always round up. So we do want to round to 982.78, 982.78, round it up. So now I got that extra decimal. There we go. And now we're ready to actually define what our bins are. Now in Excel, we only have to tell Excel what the bottom number is for each bin. So we'll hit the smallest value was 419.05. 0.58. Enter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the previous value and add the bin width to it. We're going to take the 419 and add the bin width of 982. And to do that, I'm going to hit equals, select the cell right above, and we're going to add 982.78. Hit enter. That's my second bin. If I grab this corner now and drag down, that'll give me 3, 4, 5, 6 bins. Now, a concern people have a lot of the times is this bottom one is smaller than my biggest number. We have to remember that's going to be from 5,300 on up to another 982. And so sometimes people go one extra bin just so that they can see that this 6316.24 will go into the last bin. We don't need that last one, though, for our frequency distribution. So only need the 6 bins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're ready to have Excel do all the hard work for us. We're going to go to that Data Analysis button under Data, Data Analysis, and above Random Number Generation, a couple steps up, you see a histogram option. We're going to say OK, and it's going to ask us for some pieces of information here. First, we need the input range. Those are the actual data values. So we got to select those again. The credit card balances, all of these. Hit enter. For bin range, we're going to click our button to select from the data. And the bins we've got here were 419 through 53. Output range, let's just stick it on the table right here. Make sure you select output range. At the very bottom, make sure you select chart output. That's what's going to give you your histogram. If you don't select chart output, you don't get your histogram. Say OK. And here is our histogram. Might make it a little bigger here so we can see what we're working with. One thing I notice about this histogram is a very large error. There is space between our bars. Excel always puts space between the bars, and that is wrong. We need to fix that. And the way we fix that is we double-click any bar, and there will be a gap width option. And you can drop that gap width all the way down to 0. And now we get our histogram. Some people don't like that we can't see the lines in here. So what you can do is up here under Chart Tools, you can play with some colors. You can see some options where they're outlined. So there we go, outlined in white. And now we've got our nice histogram. We also have, you notice over here in columns G and H, the bin and the frequency. If I move my histogram over a bit, we can also create a frequency, a relative frequency column. And the way we calculate relative frequencies, we'll make it a calculator, equals. And we're going to take the frequency, 1, and divide by the number of data values. We had 100 students. And hit enter. Notice I did not multiply by 100 to make it a percent. That's because Excel will automatically convert these to percents for us here in just a minute. So if we grab that bottom corner and scroll it down, then up here under the Home tab, you see number, and right above number is a percent. That's going to automatically convert all of those to percents for me. And so now we see the relative frequency as well. In this case, it's rather boring because we've got 100 data values, and so the data values and the percents are the same thing. But when you're doing your homework or in real practice, you don't usually have 100 data values, and so that relative frequency percentage will be different. So that's how we can make a frequency distribution, a relative frequency distribution, and a histogram. Let's look at a different type of data here. Here I've got some categorical data. It's qualitative. We want to know what type of credit card 100 random students from 2011 who we served and 100 students from 2012 that we served. Well, we can quickly make a bar graph really nicely, and we don't even have to use the Data tab. If we come over, first you select the data we're going to make a graph of. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and other, the years 2011 and 2012. And then we come over here to Insert. And we can insert a column chart that's going to make our data into columns. The most simple is the two-dimensional column graph. It's the least deceptive, so that's usually a good one to choose. And when I select that, I can see Visa in 2011 and 2012, MasterCard in 2011, 2012. We're seeing an increase in American Express and Discover card, and also other cards, it seems. And so we can make some conclusions. Something I might notice about my graphs, though, my charts, is you always want to make sure everything is clearly labeled. You want a title, you want the bottom axis labeled, you want the vertical axis labeled. So we're going to go through and do that. Under Chart Tools, there is a Layout option. And under Layout, you can select different types of labels. We can pick a chart title, put it wherever you want. I like it above the chart. And we can name it Type of Credit Card. We also need a title for this axis, so we know what are these numbers here through 40. That's the vertical axis title. We might want a rotated one. Puts it right there. And we will say the number. And we need an axis title on the horizontal axis below. This is the type of card. So you want to make sure you've got all your titles in there so that it's very clear when someone looks at this chart what we're looking at. We're looking at the number of Visa and MasterCards going down between 2011 and 2012. The number of American Express and Discover cards are going up. We can see what's happening visually in this data set. Let's say you're sitting down with an individual student, though, and you're talking about them paying off their credit card. The average student leaves college with $26,600 in debt. So here you are as an average student. That includes credit card and student loan, I believe. Now, at 5%, you're going to be paying $284 per month in order to pay it off in 10 years. As a counselor, you're asking them to compare what if they paid $384, $100 more, an extra $100 a month. How does that affect the balances? And so when you do that, you end up with this table. It has all these data values. It shows the balance going down slowly over time, the number of months that go by, and we can see that it pays off. If you pay the extra $100, it pays off after 83 months. Otherwise, it's going to take you 120 months. But we want to make a line chart to represent this. And very similar to the way we did our bar chart earlier, is we have to select the data we want. Now, we do not have to select the time columns, just the balance columns. So if I select all those, and insert a line chart. Now, if you want to see visual dots for every value, you can select this first one. We would have 120 dots in our graph, and that's kind of extreme. So I'm not going to do the dots for this one. I'm just going to do the line. And you can see we've got our chart. Make it a little bigger. And you can see the balance going down if you pay extra a lot quicker. The balance being slow if you only pay your minimum payment. Again, we don't have our titles and our axes labeled, so let's do insert a layout. Chart title above the chart. Loan balance. We want to do a horizontal axis title. Months. And we want to do a vertical axis title. Balance. And you can turn it all sorts of different directions. Feel free to play with some of these options and see what they do to your data. But that's how we can make a line chart in Excel. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you in creating histograms, frequency distributions, relative frequency distributions, line charts, and bar charts. Good luck on your assignment.